Victim mentality is something that every single one of us slips into from time to time, and you may notice it in your children or your friends or other family members or people around you. And the problem with it is that when we are in victim mentality, we are completely disempowered, and therefore we limit our ability to actually create what we want and solve problems. Today, we're going to dive into why we all indulge in this phenomenon from time to time and how to diminish it, both for yourself and to support those around you. I'm Jody Moore. Welcome to Better Than Happy. Let's go. Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for joining me on whatever platform you're on, but especially if you're here on YouTube. I am now filming all of these on video. It only took me like 12 years to decide we might as well set up a camera and throw up a video version. So if you prefer a video version, come and hang out with me over on YouTube. Just look up Better Than Happy. Putting all the episodes up there. Thank you in advance for sharing it, for subscribing and following. All of those things help the podcast to get even more traction. So today we're going to talk about victim mentality. Now, victim mentality is something that every single one of us falls into from time to time. We all indulge in it at times, maybe some people more than others. So you may have people in your life that you think, oh yeah, she's a total victim, or he sees himself as a victim and they are someone who lives in victim mentality. And I want to just alter that a little bit and say that there's nobody who is living all the time in it, but there's also none of us who are completely free of it, as long as we're mentally healthy, I should say, right? And so it is just a mindset that we take on from time to time. And so we want to clean up our judgment of it, right? We don't want to be critical of others. Most people who are living in it for a lot of the time, it's because they are unaware that it is optional. They're unaware of what's causing it, and they're unaware of what to do about it instead. It feels real. It feels legitimate. And it's a trap that will keep you stuck, right? So the problem with victim mentality is that it is the opposite of being empowered. Victim mentality is our most powerless state. So think about this in nature. The victim is the poor, small animal who's being attacked by the predator, right? The predator is the powerful one and the victim is powerless. And so that's why being in that mindset will cause you to not be able to access or become aware of or get the motivation and drive up to become powerful in creating what you want. There are times in many people's lives when they are actually a victim. Okay, so that's not to say that everything's in your head and that nobody else can harm you. If you are in a situation where somebody is harming you and they are maybe powerful over you and you are unable to do anything to escape it, in that moment, you are a victim and you have a villain or predator or somebody harming you, right? And in that situation, victim mentality makes sense. Might even be useful at times to get yourself out of danger, right? We move into survival mechanisms like fight, flight, or freeze when we're in victim mentality. Useful if I'm in a moment of danger. And so it may be that you have been a victim at times in your past to, again, physical harm, emotional harm, somebody taking advantage of you in whatever way. Okay, I'm not saying that's not real. I'm saying if you're not in that moment, if you're thinking about it from your past or you're worrying about it from your future or it's happening not in real time, then being in victim mentality is not going to serve you. Because again, it will leave you powerless. It will leave you in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, which is useful in immediate danger, not useful the rest of the time because the logical prefrontal brain who can be wise and make critical thinking decisions and think about the future goes offline when we're in survival mode, as it should if we're truly in danger. Okay, and so I just want to be clear about that. But let's talk about then what I'm going to be talking about today is the kind of victim mentality that's not useful. When you're not in immediate present danger, then victim mentality is not going to serve you. All right, so how do we identify it? First of all, I'm going to talk about what it looks like. And again, as I go through today's episode, I want you to take a look at how maybe this shows up in your life at times, how maybe sometimes you slip into victim mentality, as we all do. But also, I'm going to give examples of how we unintentionally teach our kids victim mentality at times. So we'll talk about some things to be cautious of if you're a parent. We'll also talk about how to approach it if you have children who just sometimes slip into victim mentality and you want to help them get out of that. And also if you have friends or maybe siblings or other like adult friends or people you work with, people around you in your life who you notice slip into victim mentality. Now, of course, we can't control your children. We can't control the people around you. We want to be cautious about that. But there are things that we do that either fuel it or things that we do that fight it. And then I'm going to talk to you also today about some protective mechanisms. If you have a person in your life who is in victim mentality and maybe is not easily influenced, how you can still be empowered and create what you want in your life, because it can be difficult to be around somebody who's in victim mentality, right? Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. So let's dive in. First, let's just identify, what does it even look like? It can look like a couple of things. I want to start with the shame side of victim mentality. The shame side says, something's wrong with me. I'm weak. I'm not good enough. I'm not the kind of person who can succeed in certain ways. I'm never going to get there. I should be further along by now. Why is this taking me so long? When you compare yourself to other people and you judge yourself, you move into shame, and that can become a version of victim mentality. It might be a lot of complaining, a lot of self-loathing, a lot of negative self-talk, but for other people, it's not so obvious. It's more of a retreating inward, a shutting down, a putting up a guard, a lot of silence, a lot of withdrawing can be an indicator that someone is in victim mentality over on the shame side. The other thing that it tends to look like for somebody in this type of victim mentality is a lot of people pleasing, a lot of just saying yes, going with the flow, having difficulty being honest and authentic and vulnerable, and or saying no to certain situations. That can be an indicator that somebody is living in victim mentality. Victim meaning, I'm weak, I'm in danger, I need to protect myself, right? And so you can see how these behaviors feel protective to people please, to shut down, or to complain and self-loathe. It all feels protective, although it's not. Actually, it's not useful in the end because there is actually not real danger, first of all, and we'll get into that in a minute. Now, the second thing that victim mentality can look like, and this is probably the more common version for a lot of people anyway, when we label them victim mentality, is the blame side, right? So it's giving the credit for your current experience, for your challenges, for your struggles, for how you're feeling, for what's not working out, for results that haven't happened in your life to outside circumstances, to other people or institutions or organizations or just circumstances and events in your life, okay? And so this tends to sound more like self-pity rather than self-loathing or self-judgment, like, poor me, it's not fair. Why do these people have these advantages and I don't? It's not fair. Again, it's going to overlap. Usually these two, I'm not saying that people are one or the other. Often we slip back and forth between both versions of this victim mentality, but it might sound like, you made me feel this way, right? If somebody's ever come to you, or if you've ever gone to someone and said, I just want to let you know that when you said that thing, it made me feel like this. That is victim mentality. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to communicate your emotions to someone, but when you assign the credit for it to someone else, you are now the victim. They're the villain or the predator in the situation. You hurt me when you said this thing, right? The proper way to share your emotions that won't put you into victim mentality is, I just want to open up with you and tell you that I'm feeling this way. And when you said this thing, I made it mean this, and I felt this way as a result. Okay, so again, we're going to get into some solutions in just a minute, but I just want to really flesh out. Like I said, sometimes we inadvertently teach our children to live in victim mentality. I see this, unfortunately, still happening way more than I wish from very well-meaning, loving parents. But it's when we say things like, hey, my child is not feeling included in the church activities. When she goes to Young Women's, that's what we call it at my church, right? When she goes to Young Women's, she feels left out. Could you please let the other girls know to include her? And could you guys do a better job of including her so she can feel more included? Okay, that is making your child the victim and expecting other people to come in and save your child. And it may or may not work. Now, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with making people aware, letting even the girls at church know, hey, this girl is struggling. She might be able to use a little bit of extra love and attention. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what's missing is the empowerment of the person who we are making the victim in this situation. Okay? So even more important, I dare say, than letting the other girls know this girl's struggling and needs to be included, is to spend time with the girl who's struggling and say, hey, what do you want to do to feel better when you go to those activities? Or do you want to feel better? What do you want to do to include yourself? Because I don't know about you, but I've seen this over and over again, that no matter how hard the girls try to include the one who's feeling left out, she continues to feel left out. Why is that? Because she's the creator of it for the most part in her own mind. And she has to be the one to decide to find the solution. She has to decide that she's not left out. Or if she is, it's not because anything's wrong with her, and that she can include herself and she can become a part of this group. But she's going to have to make the majority of the effort to make that happen. So when we're in victim mentality, we're going to show up in a certain way, right? That looks like, poor me, nothing works out for me, or I'm not worthy of certain things. A lot of times in victim mentality, we actually just don't speak up for what we want. We constantly put ourselves last. We constantly expect everyone else to go ahead of us because we don't want to bother anyone or inconvenience anyone. These are all possible indicators of victim mentality. I'm weak here and there's danger. And so I'm trying to protect myself from the danger outside of me, which is not real danger. The next thing I want to say about victim mentality is that it is completely indulgent. What I mean by that is it's much easier than being empowered. It is. I just want to acknowledge that right away, because people will say to me sometimes when I talk about this, well, that's hard to do. I'm like, yeah, it is hard to do. It's much easier to just let your default brain go into self-pity or self-judgment and then blame people outside of you, etc., or look for help outside of you, instead of going inward, taking accountability and deciding enough is enough. I'm going to create what I want in my life. I'm capable of creating whatever I want in my life. I can find solutions. That is harder to do. It's much easier. That's why I call it indulgent. It's like just driving through a drive-through restaurant and grabbing a burger for lunch is so much easier than making a healthy meal, deciding what to make, making sure I have the groceries on hand, taking the time to prepare it, and then eating that meal. It's much easier to just drive through and grab fast food. Grabbing fast food is just indulgent. I still do it at times, just like I still indulge in victim mentality at times, but the fast food is not probably as nutrient rich and as good for my body, and might have other things in it that aren't going to serve my body in the long run, as the really healthy homemade lunch that I prepare at home. But is it easier? Yes, of course it's easier to grab a burger at a drive-through, right? And that's how I want you to think about victim mentality. It's kind of indulgent. So it's not wrong. Don't judge yourself, just like I don't judge myself when I grab a burger for lunch. But it's just not ultimately how I want to live my life as much of the time as possible. It's not going to create ultimately what I want, okay? So it's easier and it's not righteous. It's not useful. It's not selfless. It's not humble. And I'm saying this because you probably know that on some level, especially if you're not the one you're thinking about right now. If you're thinking about somebody else you know, think about a loved one, a friend, a family member, even one of your kids who tends to show up in victim mentality a lot. We all know it's not useful, but it feels like it is to the victim, to the person in the victim mentality, right? They feel like this is somehow useful. Either it's going to help me to get what I want, it's going to get me some validation, some sympathy. People are going to take pity on me, or someone's going to come along and rescue me if they just see how much I'm struggling. Or it feels like I said, humility or righteousness, to put ourselves down, to just go with the flow, to people please. It's none of those things. What it is, in my opinion, is actually weakness and, again, indulgence. So I would much rather you decide, hey, I'm responsible for creating what I want, and nobody else is, and I'm not waiting around for them, and I'm worthy of taking care of me. You are. You're worthy of taking care of you, and it's your responsibility to. So let's talk about a little bit about what fuels victim mentality. Then we're going to talk about how to fight it as much as possible, again, in yourself and in others. And then we're going to talk about how to protect ourselves, how to have some boundaries and things to make sure that we are not negatively impacted by people around us with victim mentality, because there will always be people, okay? So, first of all, victims need villains, right? In order for me to stay in victim mentality, there has to be a villain, and that villain might be another person, it might be a group of people, it might be a circumstance or an organization, or you name it. Anything outside of me, I can decide to make the villain at any given time, but without a villain, I'm not a victim. Okay, so what I want you to be cautious of, and this is one I see happen a lot with parents, is that providing some empathy and some validation to your child, but anyone you love actually, can be a very useful thing to do. But it goes too far when we're reinforcing that this other outside person or thing is a villain. It reinforces victim mentality in their minds. Okay, so for example, let's say you have a child who's on a sports team and they have a coach who you don't think is running the team the right way. Maybe they have favorites and they're not giving people enough playtime or whatever, okay? You might have opinions. I've coached on this a lot. Opinions about how that coach is running the team, and they're not doing it what you and your child think is the right way, okay? So if your child starts slipping into victim mentality, and by the way, as parents, we often do the same thing. We make our kids the victims, and the coach is the villain, then you want to be very cautious. You got to get yourself out of that victim mentality, or you're going to teach your child to do the same. Okay, so I might empathize if my kid comes home saying the coach did this, that, and the other, and they're not being fair, and this isn't right. And I might say, gosh, that sounds really hard. I'm so sorry that's happening. But I don't want to indulge the story. I don't want to get in the weeds of it. I don't want to start making phone calls and sending texts and trying to solve for this, because it tells my child, you're right. You're a victim here, and we have this villain, and we need to do something about it. What are we going to do about this villain? That is not useful to you or your child. Okay, so all this interfering that parents do to try to smooth the road for kids, we used to call this helicopter parenting. I don't know if they still call it that nowadays. Reinforces for your child, you're a victim. There's villains out there. I'm going to take care of you. Okay, so do not do that. Do not. In coaching, we call this getting in the pool, right? If a client comes to me and says, this person in my life is terrible, and I'm like, wow, he or she does sound terrible. Now, as a coach, I'm in the pool with my client. And you don't need to coach your kids. You don't need to coach your family or friends. But if I notice this person is feeling completely disempowered, and especially if this is a person who seems to have a habit of that a lot in their lives, I don't want to contribute to it by going, you're right. What a jerk. What a horrible person. Again, there's a time for a little empathy and validation, but it's going to fuel victim mentality. Okay? Do you know what fights it instead? Is to say, gosh, you're right. But you know what? And then give their name. Like, I have a daughter named Macy, so I'll just use her as an example. If I was trying to help empower Macy, I would validate what she said, and then I'd say, but good thing you're Macy Moore, because you will be able to handle this. I know you will. You can still show up as your best self, and I know that you will, because that's often what you choose. Or if you don't, that's okay too. You don't always have to be on. but you're Macy Moore. Right? I love that scene in Jerry Maguire. It has some language, but his wife is giving him this pep talk and she's like, "You're Jerry Maguire." And she puts a curse word in the middle, right? But she's empowering him. She's saying like, no, the fact that you lost your job and whatever's going on is not going to affect you because you're Jerry Maguire. Let's go out there and show them what you're capable of. That's the kind of energy that fights it. Now, that's not always appropriate. When people come to you and they want to complain and they're in victim mentality, I'm not saying you have to move into that mode with everybody. I'm just saying what's going to fuel it is you getting in the pool, villainizing the villain. And what fights it is empowering them with, yeah, but you're you and you've got this, right? Another thing that can be useful, and again, you have to decide when's an appropriate time to use this tactic, but especially with kids or people that you have a little bit of, responsibility over teaching and guiding, is to use it as a lesson. So I remember I had my oldest son, Isaac, when he was in, I think it was middle school, he had a teacher who lost one of his assignments that he had done. And the teacher accused him of not turning it in. And he said, "Mom, I know I turned in that assignment." Well, the teacher didn't have it and was like, "I don't have it. You didn't do it." So Isaac was only able to redo the assignment partially because of the time crunch and some other factors involved. But he just redid what he could, turned it in, got partial credit for it. And then final grades get posted. And then sure enough, the teacher passes back all the assignments and gives Isaac the makeup assignment he did and his original assignment, which he had not graded. For some reason, it turned up now. And now we have the proof that my son really did do the original assignment, did it on time, did it well. Too late to go back and change the grade because final grades had all been posted. Okay? So it's tempting for me as a mom to be like, "What? That is not fair. We are going to call the school and we are going to make this right." And maybe that's the right thing to do at times, but that will reinforce victim mentality, right? So what I said to my son, and this is what I mean by use it as an opportunity to give a life lesson, is I said, "Hey, Isaac, I got to tell you something. Oh, by the way, another detail to the story is that this same teacher, even though the semester had ended, my son was going to be with this teacher again for the next semester." Okay, so I said, "Listen, things like this happen in life. Sometimes life is unfair and we receive negative consequences at the effect of somebody else's mistakes or actions. I wish that weren't the case, but reality says that is the case, right? So now we have options. We have options, and I don't know what the right choice is for you. I just want to help you think through your options. Okay, so one option is to be really mad about this and just complain about it all the time. Let it ruin your year. Or another option is to fight it, to go have conversations with the teacher and then the principal if necessary, and go through whatever channels are necessary to get your grade corrected. And the third option is to just decide, whatever. It happens, not a big deal. I'm not letting it ruin my year. Let's move on. Now, any one of these options has consequences, right? Obviously, the first one's probably our least ideal option. It's just going to punish you and maybe me and nobody else. So probably not ideal, right? But the second option, we might be able to get your grade corrected and you might get some vindication for what happened, but we don't know how that teacher is going to respond. The teacher might decide to hold a grudge against you and make your next semester miserable or not. Who knows? We don't get to control that part, right? The third option means that you now have this lower grade than what you actually earned, but you also we don't have to put in the time and effort to going and fighting that battle. And honestly, I don't know what's the right option. All I know is you have options. And I want you to think about what feels right and best to you, and I will support whatever you choose to do. Okay, so do you see how I'm not spending a long time going, "I can't believe that teacher and this shouldn't be happening and here's what we're going to do," and getting all lit up about it. I'm just using this as an opportunity to teach my son that sometimes things like this in life will happen. And here's how you become empowered. You take a look at your options, you consider the consequences of each one, and then you pick whatever one feels right. Okay? That's what I mean by don't just get in there and start villainizing the villain. empower your friend, child, or whoever it is. Now, if it's yourself that's in victim mentality, okay, and maybe something's happened, and again, I'm not suggesting that there aren't things that happen that we would say, I wish that hadn't happened. I wish that person hadn't have done that. That's not ideal behavior, okay? It does happen. But lingering in it, in victim mentality, doesn't empower you. Okay, so if it's you that's going through this experience, then I want you to really connect with yourself. So if I'm going through something and I'm feeling victimized, then I stop and go, oh, girl, I love you. I'm proud of you. Thanks for the great things you're doing and all the things that you're messing up and the problem areas in your life. I'm not mad at you for. It's all right. I got you. I love you. I'm here for you. Okay. And then I give myself a little pep talk, right? Guess what? You're Jody Moore. So what are you going to do now? What are you going to do next? Who are you going to be today? Okay, I'm sorry that thing happened in the past, or I'm sorry that this thing didn't work out, or I'm sorry that you're not getting the results you wanted as fast as you wanted, or I'm sorry that, whatever it is, I'm so sorry. I validate myself. I empathize with myself. And then I go, but you're Jody freaking Moore. So now what? And I don't do that before I'm ready for it. Sometimes I need a minute to wallow in victim mentality. But at some point, I'm going to be like, enough is enough. I will create what I want in my life. Let's go. Okay. Now, last thing I want to say about the villain part of victim mentality is that if someone's making you the villain, right? Maybe it's one of your children, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a brother, sister, boss, coworker, whatever. People will do this sometimes. If they live in victim mentality a lot, then they're looking out for villains. And they might make you the villain. Maybe at times, maybe a lot of times, especially if you're their mom or dad. Okay? What you have to remember, the protective part of this, is that it is not about you. This is about what's going on for them. If they're in victim mentality, they need villains. So they're looking out for them. And if you're heavily involved in this person's life, like a parent, you're the easiest place for them to place that villain role. Okay? So I'm not saying you don't want to be aware of it and have conversations and have boundaries or whatever is necessary. But the most important thing is that you stop thinking that it's about you, that if you just did it differently or better, or you could satisfy or please them or meet their demands, then they would stop doing this. They won't. Victim mentality says, I need a villain. Who's it going to be? Okay? That is not about you. So do not abandon yourself trying to accommodate a victim, because they will find new reasons to villainize you in the end. Okay, now, the next thing that victims need to stay in victim mentality is a savior. So victims are looking out for villains and they're looking out for saviors. And this is probably the one that, again, most of us accidentally fall into this role and reinforce victim mentality when we really just are trying to look out for people. Saviors are the people that come in and try to move all the pieces around like a game of chess for the quote unquote victim. It might look like a lot of manipulation, a lot of phone calling, texting, trying to solve problems, but sometimes it just looks like giving them the answers. Have you tried this? Have you said that? What if you did this thing? What if you did that thing? Now, again, nothing wrong with giving advice and having conversations with your kids or your loved ones who are struggling. But if you think you know the way out of their struggle better than they do, you also are putting them in the victim role in your own mind. Guess what? You don't know the way out. They know the way out because they have put themselves in this situation in the first place. Okay, so it's telling them what to say, telling them what to do, solving their problem for them in whatever way, giving them money, giving them the answer, giving them the solution, swooping in and saving the day. These are all savior type behaviors. Now, the problem with it is that it reinforces in the person's mind, you can't figure this out on your own. You need your mom to solve it for you, to tell you what to do, or you need your sister or whoever to give you money. You need these other people. You're not capable of it on your own. That is not a useful mindset for anybody that we love or for ourselves. And every time we swoop in and save the day or give the answer, we reinforce that idea in people's minds. Okay, so that's how we fuel it, is by playing the role of the savior. It doesn't feel like we're doing anything disempowering. It feels like we're helping people. It feels like we're lifting people. And there's a time for serving, and I want you to be generous, and I want you to share ideas. All I'm saying is if this person is in victim mentality, doing that reinforces it. So you have to decide where the line is. You have to decide, is this an appropriate time for me to serve? Or is this maybe going to reinforce a disempowered mindset? And if so, what am I going to do instead? I'll tell you, what fights it is to not play the role of the savior. And it starts by you deciding in your own mind that you don't even know better than them. You're not more capable than them of solving their problem. Once I started adapting this myself, because I noticed I like to play the role of the savior. It feels good to us, right? We get to help someone. We feel like we're doing a good job. And sometimes they like it too. They want a solution to their problem. But when I realized that when I swoop in and save like that, this person keeps struggling. It might help temporarily, but then they struggle again. I would be willing to swoop in and save over and over again even, but I can tell they're actually getting worse, not better. That's when you have to stop and go, hold on. Am I playing a savior role in a way that is reinforcing a toxic message in their own minds? And instead of that, can I remember that they know better than me? And then when they bring up their problems and challenges to me, I say, oh my gosh, that must be so hard. Empathy, totally appropriate, right? That must be so hard. I'm so sorry you're going through that. And then instead of try this, do that, let me just do this, you say, what do you think you're going to do? Somebody taught me this one time, you guys, when I was in the thick of all this. And it was a friend of mine who also happens to be a coach. And she said, what if instead of swooping in with the answers, you just asked, what do you think you're going to do? And my mind was blown because it was so much easier than what I was doing before. And it's the right question to ask because they know better than I know. You might even ask, what can I do to help and support you? But let them come up with the answer. Let them tell you what they need from you instead of you going, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to do this and we're going to do that. And don't worry, we're going to solve this. Okay? It's very different to say, I'm here for you. I love you. Please call me and reach out to me if I can be of support or help in any way. But you've got this. Again, back to what we said before. You're whoever the person is, fill in the name, right? You've got this. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to support you and help you with whatever plan you come up with. Now, you guys, this might be your friends, again, family members. This might be your children. This might be your teenage children or your young adult or your adult children. You do not need to swoop in and save them. If we could, if it was even possible, none of our kids would be struggling because we all want to save them all, right? It's not even possible. It doesn't even work. It just reinforces in their own mind that they're not capable of figuring it out on their own. If you're the one in victim mentality, which you will be at times, I am at times, then the solution is, wait a second. What if I stop waiting for somebody outside of me to come and save the day? What if I stop thinking the answer exists outside of me, that somebody else knows better than me what to do or has the solution? What if I decide, I got this. I know what to do. And even if I don't know right now, I will know. It'll come to me. I'll figure it out. I'm perfectly capable of figuring this out. And maybe I need time again to have some negative emotions, to feel sorry for myself, to have a little pity party, to be discouraged. That's all fine. That's when you connect with yourself. Hey, I got you. I love you. It's okay to be discouraged. We're just going to do that today. And I'm not mad at you. But at some point, the solution is within you. The answer is within you. What to do, what to say, whether or not to take path A, B, or C, and how to get there lives within you. Isn't that great news? All right, my friends, thanks for joining me today. I hope that you took something useful away about victim mentality. I want you to live your life from an empowered state, and I want you to be the kind of person that influences others to do the same as much as possible. Thanks for joining me today. If you like this episode, please share it with others, and I'll see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to today's YouTube video. I hope that you got some great takeaways that will make your life even better than happy. If you liked what you heard here today, please share it with a friend. And most importantly, make sure that you've subscribed and enabled notifications here on our YouTube channel. Doing that serves two purposes. First, it helps you to make sure that you never miss an episode when we release a new one. But second of all, selfishly, it helps me get my work out to more people and helps our YouTube channel grow. So thank you in advance. I will see you next time on another episode.